to cover Chapter 10, Section 4, America as a World Power. To start things off with, we're going to look at the Russo-Japanese War. As you see in our cartoon here, you can see the Empire of Japan on the right and the Empire of Russia on the left. And in the middle, we have Teddy Roosevelt, President of the United States, coming to an agreement that will eventually earn him the Nobel Peace Prize in 1906. Looking at the map, you can see that Japan is not just the island of Japan, but is the Empire of Japan. They're looking to expand at the turn of the century and to acquire more territory. Being a small island country with few resources, in order to truly become a world power or an imperial power, they're going to need resources. So Japan will make a move into the Korean Peninsula, located on your map, and then into this part of China that is known as Manchuria. This territory was once underneath the control of the Russian Empire, which you can imagine is going to cause the Russian Empire to look to defend the territory that is being taken from them. In a series of battles, both on land and in the sea, the Japanese Empire is able to defeat the Russian fleet and army in securing this territory. But being a small island country with few resources, Japan quickly is running out of the materials needed to win this war or to hold off this vast Russian Empire. And so they turn to the United States, to Teddy Roosevelt, and secretly hope that he is going to be able to fix their problems and end this fighting by still acquiring acquiring some of the territory that they so desire. And so, as we said, Teddy Roosevelt wins the Nobel Peace Prize for doing just this. He's able to sit down with the leaders of Japan and Russia and get them to sign the Treaty of Portsmouth, which ends the Russo-Japanese War. Japan is able to acquire some of the territory, land in Manchuria, and also that Korean peninsula, while not necessarily getting all the money that they had hoped from the Russian Empire. The next topic for discussion today is the building of the Panama Canal. Now, in class, we will watch a video over the construction of the canal and to talk about that process. But just a little bit of background information. Before the United States is able to finish building the Panama Canal, they then need to control the land. France had once had the ability or the right to build the Panama Canal, but it's going to fail to do so, mainly because of the distance and the fact that malaria is still very prevalent in Panama, and so it hinders the ability to work and construct the canal. Looking at our cartoon, you can see Uncle Sam supporting, tapping on the shoulder, essentially, this Panamanian who is looking to fight back against Colombia. Colombia had control of Panama at this time, and in order to build the canal, Panama is going to be able to, or going to need to, win its independence from Colombia. You can see Uncle Sam here has bigger dreams in mind. Not only does he want the Panamanians to get independence, but he wants them to get independence so he can build a canal. The Panama Canal, as we have discussed numerous times already, is super important to the United States if they are truly going to become a world power. It's going to save them time and money by taking this shortcut through the Isthmus of Panama instead of having to go all the way down around the southern tip of South America. The video in class that we watch over the construction of the canal will take us through the different steps, and we'll talk about the Gatun Lake as they're going to take advantage of the water that's already currently at this location. Here's a little diagram from your textbook that shows you how the lock and dam system works across the Panama Canal, raising and lowering ships as they go from the Atlantic to the Pacific or vice versa. On to foreign policy. There are three pieces of foreign policy that we're going to be dealing with in class. We have the Roosevelt Corollary, which is going to add to the Monroe Doctrine. The Monroe Doctrine, if you remember from our document set, states that we're going to divide the globe into the Eastern Hemisphere, where Europe is, and the Western Hemisphere, where the United States is. And it tells Europe, essentially, mind your own business and stay on your side of the Atlantic Ocean, while the United States will mind everybody else's business here on the Western Hemisphere. When this is written in 1823, the United States doesn't have the force or the military or the capability to really enforce this document. But as we have talked about with the buildup of the American Navy, America now has the ability to do that. So the Roosevelt Corollary is going to be an addition to the Monroe Doctrine. And this essentially states Europe stay over there, or the United States will use its force, its military, its might to make you stay over in your hemisphere. At the same time, America is going to act as this international police force between Europe and the Americas. That's Central America, that's South America. Next up is dollar diplomacy. This is the foreign policy enacted by President Taft after Roosevelt leaves office in 1908. Taft is going to use money as his key tool here. It's no longer force, but it's going to be money. America is going to look to invest, as you can look at the pie chart on the left here. Almost half of the resources spent in the globe are going to be spent in Latin America and around the Caribbean. And as we break that down, looking at the pie chart on the right, most of these are going to be for resources, whether that's iron or oil or agriculture. Those are going to be resources that the United States can essentially take from those Latin American countries. Now, there will be some development of this money. There will be some development of public works and things that will help the infrastructure of these Latin America countries, but for the most part, America is looking out for itself. The thought being here that if these Latin American countries borrow money from America, they won't have to borrow it from Europe. And if they, in the future, default on any of these loans that America is making, it just allows America to get involved in their country and not some European power to come over to the Western Hemisphere, which would be in direct conflict with the Monroe Doctrine and the Roosevelt Core League. And the last piece of foreign policy we're going to look at is Woodrow Wilson, when he becomes president. It's called missionary diplomacy. The United States is not going to recognize leaders of countries that they feel are abusive or oppressive to the people of their nation. Mexico is going to be the example we're looking here. At the cartoon, you can see Uncle Sam is looking at this bloody hand that is outstretched to him. Now, in the past, America recognized whoever was in control of a country as you are the leader, and we will then work and negotiate with you. At this point, missionary diplomacy, or moral diplomacy as it's sometimes known as, America is going to say, well, we don't like what you're doing, and therefore we are not going to work with you, we're not going to trade with you. And we see this come to play in Mexico. America is going to have really the beginning of this policy where America supports leaders that are supportive of American business. If leaders are in favor of America using resources from these countries and having favorable trade negotiations, America is okay recognizing those people regardless of how those individuals came to power and or how those people treat the citizens of their country. Now, this becomes a problem in Mexico, as the United States will recognize a leader, but the people of Mexico don't recognize that person, or not all the people of Mexico will recognize that person as the true leader of Mexico. And here's where rebels like Pancho Villa and Emilio Zapata are going to challenge that authority of the Mexican government, which puts America in an interesting position. What are they going to do? Pancho Villa, to raise havoc, comes across the border into the United States and will kill 17 or so American citizens, and that's going to cause alarm. It's going to give Woodrow Wilson an excuse he needs to get involved in Mexico. He will send General John J. Pershing into Mexico with 15,000 American soldiers to search for Pancho Villa. Unfortunately, after months and months of searching, they're unable to locate Pancho Villa and bring him to justice, and eventually Americans are going to be occupied or preoccupied with World War I, and eventually will have to then pull out without any resolution to the Pancho Villa question. And finally, for today, what I'd like you to do is to pause the screen right now and to look at this diagram. It should be a good overview of all the things that have been covered in the Spanish-American War and the buildup of American imperialism. Questions? Ask me in class.